Okay. This is Colleen.
I'm Colleen. This is Meta. Whoa, like
Colleen and Meta.
very meta, actually. And this is Ash.
Ash. We'll see. We'll hear more from Ash later. So we can switch places. You hold this.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
Got the roving camera.
Wow.
Okay. I'll take
look
these
like?
out.
It's pretty cool.
Okay. Now, so there's this mysterious voice.
Yeah.
Jono.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good.
Good.
Ask me another question.
Where'd you get that shirt from?
My wife got it.
Okay, well,
Maybe she can. I asked the family to actually dial in and maybe they can put it on the chat.
nice.
So, Jono, what do you do here at Askable?
So I head up the sales and customer growth team. So basically all new business and also existing client relationships. To help them get more out of the platform and have a great experience.
Very cool. Maybe we can have a walk around. You could tell us about the space a little bit, and yeah, you
All right.
lead the way.
Lead the way. All right. Well, here is the kitchen. This is where the magic happens. We are very into coffee here. We love it. We support a local roaster called Parallel. Shout out to Parallel. They're great. They're legit. That's Ash's little filter setup there. I think that's part of her contract when we hired her.
That's her personal setup.
Yeah, that's her personal setup. Cool. Yeah. Anyway, we're spending too long in the kitchen. This is the kitchen. Come on through down this way. So here you'll see scooter parking, which is important here at Askable.
So are these scooters belonging to actual people? Because I was wondering, like, if it's like company scooters that you guys are just awesome about giving people scooters.
Yeah, they're company scooters. So there's 3 of these new 9bots, and then we got 2 kind of shitty ones here that are, they were good at their time, but they're company scooters. We use them to get around either to like meetings here in Brisbane, but really we use them as commuter things, and it's just kind of a little perk of working here.
That's awesome.
We're a startup, so you need e-scooters, right? So down through here, we've got product here on the left. We've got ops here kind of on the right.
It's got a whole wing devoted to product.
Yeah, whole wing. This is, and we're hiring more too, so we're going to have to reshuffle some things here. So product are here. We've got sales and customer success just behind them. We're a pretty tight-knit team anyway. Like you'll see this office, it feels kind of like a living room sometimes, but
I see a coffin-looking booth over there as well.
Whereabouts is that?
That one over there.
Yeah, this is, yeah, I'll show you. Like this. Kind of laptop, nice and relaxing. It's good. We like to create different spaces here so that, you can kind of take your work and kind of get a different environment. I do love the booths. They're good.
Now, so this is a very much a crafting and experience for you guys working here, and Askable strikes me as a really kind of UX. UX is a big part of what you do. Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, UX is a huge part about what we do, and we think a physical office and a physical space is really important. It's been a crazy 18 months of working remotely and people not being able to come in physically. We really value it, so as soon as we could, we were back in here. It's just part of the experience of working here, of having that close interaction. Now, what we do for our customers and our clients is help them craft their experiences, and that's something we're super passionate about. It's actually our mission at Askable to accelerate product improvement around the world. When we started, we started out of a digital agency as a little offshoot product idea to help to speed up participant recruitment we were doing there. We just wanted to share that with the world, to share quicker and better ways of recruiting participants. So that was kind of Askable in its inception. From there, we've kind of expanded that beyond just recruiting participants to delivering insights and kind of doing the full spectre. But experience is incredibly important to us, from what our customers are doing for their customers to what we're doing for ours.
Wow.
I
see a couch.
Yeah.
I just want to dig into this mission, though. So you said accelerate product improvement around the world.
Yeah.
And it would be good to understand sort of like how you're doing that and like some of the outcomes that you're delivering for customers. So
Yeah, sure. So the cool thing is about that mission is that we're not responsible for it at the end of the day. Like for companies like Clipchamp, you're using us to improve your product, right? So we're a tool that's used, but more than that, we love consulting and helping with the strategy, because we get a lot of projects come through every day from all sorts of industries and all sorts of clients, and we're incredibly lucky and privileged to work with the people we do. Like, it's an amazing position to be in, and yeah, like it's hard to not talk in specifics, but you know, I'll be on calls with a client after they've done a project, and it could be a streaming service, and they've just done discovery research on a new brand, and I've seen that launch in the wild, and it's really rewarding to know that we had a part in doing that, that we found them 25 participants of different kind of demographics that they specified to help discover and come up with the right product to launch to market. And you know, like, we see that all the time. Like, we see it from streaming services to beer brands testing their marketing collateral to startups in Brisbane using us as well, which is incredibly rewarding. So yeah, we're accelerating that product improvement, but we're doing it through our customers and partners. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. So these ProductTank events, I'm really proud that as a community we've kind of kept it pure and we've kept sort of promotion out of it. So when we were, you know, approaching this event with Ash, yes, you know, Clipchamp has used Askable, and we've been really excited about the solution that we found in it. And I was like, Ash, can we talk about research? Can we just talk about Askable? And she was like, no, there's this other topic I really want to talk about. So I'm saying this to say this wasn't planned or anything, but I feel like it's a worthwhile conversation to have, to kind of learn more about what you do. So when we started using Askable where I work, what really impressed me was the quality and the engagement of the people. And it's exciting to hear that you sort of have the phase 2 offering where, because we kind of found it and we're like, for the most part, we're like, yeah, we've got this. Like, we want to learn more about customer problems, and, you know, like 95% of the people that would dial into the calls that we were kind of putting out there were really engaged. So tell me about sort of what you've done to kind of create this quality of engagement that we are now benefiting from.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing, right? Like, my role is so focused on our clients and our customers, but we don't have them without the participant database and our amazing engaged participants. Like, they are Askable at the end of the day. And I mean, what we do to keep them engaged, transparency is key in all of this. And you'd find in market research, like, it is such a shrouded, dirty, kind of weird little industry. And we're not from this world, right? We are from marketing and we are from customer relationships. So that's kind of helped us, because we've always looked at stuff through that lens of the consumer. And for us, the participant experience has to be core. So like things like instant incentive payments. So like, okay, you've just done a survey, here's your $5. Or you've just done a video interview with Clipchamp, here's your $50, or whatever it is. We always have that. It's a two-sided thing, right? We pay them for their time, and our clients pay us to recruit and pay the participants. But we always took the front foot of, we'll do that instantly. We won't wait till our client pays us, which a lot of other companies might do. We also made it just open to be like, well, do you want to get paid via PayPal or e-gift pay? Like, we want to give the participants that choice. And for us, sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's like us copying the fees for, if someone wants to get paid by PayPal and we're copying the fees, we're like, well, we're not going to pay them $48.50. Like, we'll pay them $50 and we'll cop that. Like, it's those sort of decisions that our co-founders made when building Askable that have helped it stay where it's at. And like, for us, the participant experience is core. And we're actually launching, and I'm really excited about this, is we're launching a new participant app and experience. And I mean, again, for me, it's like, well, why would we spend so much time on something that's not going to bring us more money, right? Like, why don't we just keep improving the client experience? But for us, they go hand in hand. Without a good participant experience, we do not have clients benefiting from those engaged participants, those guys who are going to be on there, love doing our sessions. So it's part and parcel with it's a two-sided marketplace for us. They are equally as important. And we've got some people in the business who are really the advocate for the participant. If anything, I'm always pushing for client and they're always pushing for participant. But it's really good to have that tension, yeah.
That's awesome. So we're going to finish our tour here and going to go and chat with some more people. If you're watching from home, I guess you would be watching from home, but pop on the chat if you have any questions for people. I'm the puppet. I'm your virtual networking buddy. So if you got questions for people that that we're chatting with, just pop them on. Or if there's a problem with audio or whatever, just let us know. Just put it on the chat and we'll try and fix it up. Can we keep having a look around? Is there much more?
Yeah, I'll show you down the rest of this office. So, look, we've got workspaces here. We've got meeting rooms down this end. That's John's office there. We want to make it feel like a lounge room, and that's pretty much what it feels like, right? So, yeah, not much else here.
This is for meetings here, like you guys meet in these rooms? That's
right. We meet sometimes together. We do a lot of calls with our clients, and so sometimes meeting rooms are at a premium that they are being used. I feel guilty when I'm the only one in here, but it's also very comfortable. So anyway, soz not soz. But yeah, this is the space. We've also got where the ProductTank event is happening tonight it's like a free open space for us as well, which will sometimes take calls in. We'll do workshops in that space. We'll do full-on meetings as a team in that space too. So, you'll see that space later. We've got balconies either side, and that's where everyone is now if you want to head out.
Yeah, let's do it. So just one last question. So the type of customer you have, I get the impression that you guys serve some bigger customers, because the impression I've gotten though is every time I have a question, I'm on, intercom or whatever, the chat, quick responses, and the sort of the demeanor of those responses is really warm. Like I'm, the team's seeking to understand where I'm at. And I can imagine that approach has helped you guys with bigger customers who are trying to navigate research.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important that the intercom is our line in, it's our web chat, and we've been with those guys for 3 or 4 years basically. When we started, we actually got a rude shock when the startup pricing ended after year one, and we were like, holy moly, that's an expensive platform now. But anyway, it's served us so well, and so we have sounds. We've got a sound system here and Sonos speakers through the office that they basically play notifications when important stuff happens. So if ever there's a 1-star participant rated from a client or someone who doesn't show, that gets played in the office. We want the negative and the positive to come through. Also, new sales come through. When we get some of our big kind of bulk credit packs from maybe some of the enterprise accounts, songs play. It's a party in here. But intercom is one of those as well. So we hear the dum when a new message comes in. Everyone hears that, so we're on it quick. I think the average response time at the moment is under 2 minutes for any query. So yeah, we want to keep that up.
That's awesome. I love that customer obsession. I might let you get some pizza or whatever you want to do, and we'll thank you for showing us around the place.
Cheers. Thanks, Jace. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to keep roving. How you doing, Colleen?
Good.
Your arm's getting tired? Yeah. There you go. They're one-handed. That's awesome. All right, so we're going to, hopefully Lou, who's one of our organizers, has found some people for me to talk to. All right, so I'm giving her the thumbs up, but we'll head on down. Again, comment if there's any issues with the sound, and we'll try and fix it. And put your questions in. I'm your puppet. All right. Here we go. We'll wait to go. No, this is the question. So we decided to start with kind of prompting questions. We want to know about challenges that people have been going through. We want to know about COVID stuff. Got to ask about that. And also burnout. So the topic of tonight is burnout. So we want to know about burnout. Here we go. Hey, Lou.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
How many viewers do we have there, Colleen? How many viewers do we have? We have 4 viewers. Isn't that amazing?
Sure. Well, I'll take any crowd, frankly.
Who do we have?
We have Paul for Anatomy Labs. And this is a preview for our next Gold Coast event too, one of our speakers on the panel. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the challenges he's had.
All right, Paul. I'm Jace, one of the ProductTank organizers. So what we're doing is we're dialed into YouTube, and I'm the puppet. So I didn't want people at home to feel left out of the networking. So we've got some prompting questions here, but if questions roll across, we'll just pass those through to you. But tell me about what you do and also about Anatomy Labs.
So I'm the co-CEO and CTO of Anatomy Labs. We're a company that started in 2014. You can see it on the show. We are really a security/privacy/identity company. And we produce an app called MySudo that's in the market. And we also have a platform called Sudo Platform, which we sell out to enterprises for their end users. And what do we do at the end? We try to make people's interaction with the internet more safe. And we provide a bunch of different facilities to do that for an end user to be safe. I'll give you one example. If you want to go shopping, right, we'll say, look, you need to go on a shopping site and you need to be able to register. What do you need to register? Usually an email address, maybe a phone number. And what do you need to buy stuff? Well, you need a credit card. So we'll issue our users with phone numbers, email addresses, virtual credit cards, so they can go online and buy something without risking any of their personal data.
Wow. It's like a burner phone and email and card.
Burner everything, yeah. So we have safe browsers, we have password managers, a bunch of different functions that allow people to be more safe out on the internet.
So there's a whole suite of products to protect the consumer as they're out there. And is it mainly e-commerce engagements?
Yeah, and our customer at the end, whether we're going through an enterprise or directly to a customer, is always the end user who needs to do real things in the real world, like buy things, sell things, they want to go dating, any of those sort of things, we try to protect them.
So where are your customers?
Majority are in the US, both consumers and enterprises. And though we work across US, Canada, Europe as well. But mainly the US is our biggest market.
I think one of your PMs, Adam, is it? Or yeah, he was telling me about this because we just launched events down in the Gold Coast, and I had a quick chat with him, and he was telling me, and I thought, this sounds like something I would want. Like, what's the cost?
Well, it's a subscription model. So the way, like, for example, if you use our app called MySudo, then you pay a subscription, and we have, a Sudo Go, a Sudo Pro, and a Sudo Max, which gives you more facilities. And then a user decides how much they want. So if they want, for example, 3 different personas with different phone numbers and email addresses, they'll take a Sudo Pro, and that might cost them $9.99 a month or something like that. So they're paying monthly as a subscription.
Awesome. We might swivel, because I think there's people kind of coming through here, and maybe back up just a smidge so we can come away from the noise. But over here. Okay. So you were going to tell us about challenges recently.
Yeah, sure. So any startup, so we started in 2014, and as we started with a room with 5 of us in a single room in Surfers Paradise, and now we have a floor of a building. So I'd say the biggest challenge we have at the moment is growing pains. And what I mean by growing pains is being able to manage the flow of work we need to do for our B2C customers and for our enterprise customers, and being able to grow at a rate that makes sense to be able to support those customers. So I think our biggest challenge is growing at the moment. So we're at we've got so B2C product, we've got a B2B2C product, and then it's like, well, how do we grow more customers without, blowing the company up?
So
That's the growth problem, yeah.
It's sort of like putting in place systems and processes to just make sure that things stay on track.
That's right, and we take on what we can actually do, and don't take on more than that. But we also want to keep growing, get more customers, and so you've got this balance about saying, okay, we're taking on a new enterprise customer, they want to do certain things, can we fit that in with the program of work we've already got? So it's growth. I'd say that's the biggest issue for us.
And what role has the product team played in sort of helping you navigate that?
Well, Anatomy Labs, I would say, is a 100% product company. We are a product company. Nothing gets built, designed, discovered without the product team. So we have a very strong product team, and One of the person you talked to was Adam. And that product team is really the front door for everything that's done. There's no code written that isn't being directed by the product team. So we're a very product-driven company. So I would say product is our most important team.
Wow. Well, you're saying that at the right place. You got a lot of advocates.
So one of the reasons I have the product team report to me rather than sitting lower in the organisation is that I want them to have the ability to go, hold on, we're going to have to change the order of this because of this customer or this customer, or these are the requirements. And engineering do not move without the product directing that.
Colleen, have you seen any questions roll through? Okay. All right. Well, awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to come out tonight and hope you enjoyed the event.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're going to keep mingling.
Very good, thank you.
We'll catch up with Lou to see who we've got next. Yeah. Let's navigate through. So this is the awkward part where we kind of weave through. Yeah, good. How are you? We're going to go down here. I think we're interviewing you. I'm the puppet.
That's great. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Hey, Carly. And we'll come back to you. Look at this. Let's just get a shot of this pizza. There you go. It's the meetup food. Here's Meta. Oh, I should have asked. Sorry. Thank you so much, Colleen. Everyone give Colleen a hand. Okay. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so just to explain, I am the puppet, and I'm sort of trying to help everyone who's watching remotely connect with the networking and not feel left out. There might be questions that come through the chat. But yeah, maybe just start out. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Carly Shearman. I work at a Hunt & Co, which is a recruitment agency, and me and my colleague who's also here tonight specialise in technology and product. And then on top of that, we also have Women in Digital, which is a community organisation dedicating to getting more women into tech. So currently we're working on the Women in Digital Awards, which is coming up on November 12th, and we also have a UX leader and digital experience leader for that as well.
Wow. Very busy. So we had a menu of different questions that we could be asking. The scout was going to be figuring that out. Lou was going to be asking, but pick one of these questions. Okay, so we've got, tell us a bit about COVID impacts recently.
Yeah.
Tell us about any big challenges you've had with work or product lately. Or the topic tonight is burnout. So you could share with us something that you relate to about burnout or observations and so forth.
I think, thinking of the product space, obviously we work in talent acquisition, and I think the biggest thing product teams are going to struggle with, but it's also a great opportunity if you have a career in product, is all the tech giants from Sydney and Melbourne kind of now being able to hire Brisbane talent. So we're looking at Canva, Linktree, Atlassian. Never before have they taken up so much of the Australian and Brisbane market, but that's something that we're struggling with working with local startups, is making sure how can we offer things different that those giants can't. And what we've kind of come up with is at the end of the day, in a giant company, you're always going to be a number, where in these local startups, you're very much a person and you have a lot of tangible impact to bring on the product. And that's an exciting kind of thing. So I'd say that's the biggest thing we're noticing in the market, which is a bit challenging, but a great opportunity as well.
One of the things I love about Australia is sort of how relational we are. Like, what role do you feel like as an agency that works in recruitment, having that network and having those relationships plays in like serving your customers to make those connections?
Yeah, I think before I went into recruitment, I was like, if I just work really hard, that's all that matters. But now I've realized it is really based on that personal brand and that network. So I would say coming to events like this to kind of connect with people in the industry plays a huge role in your career or your business's growth. And I'd say Australia is quite relational, but specifically Brisbane, it's so corny, but we are a small country town, so making sure you are getting out there and meeting everyone is the difference between kind of getting that next role and staying where you are and kind of plateauing out.
Awesome. So have you come to a ProductTank before?
Yes. The ProductTank is one of my favourite product meetups in Brisbane. I get very excited and I book it as far as I can in advance. I think sometimes you release 2 at once. So I'm very excited to be here tonight. I went to the Schedulo one, went to the Citrus Ad one, and I really like the roadshow as well.
Awesome. Could you share sort of like a big takeaway that you've had from our events,
A big takeaway.
or even a learning?
I think it's always just interesting, like particularly with the roadshow this year, is just learning the different companies and their scaling challenges. Like I think it's so rare that companies kind of transparently get on a panel and say, it's actually really, really hard. And what I like about ProductTank in particular is that everyone's quite transparent that things do go wrong and things do break and team members do get burnt out, and that sucks, but it's part of scaling a product. And how do we reduce that or mitigate that risk? But probably what I've liked the most is the transparency and I guess the learnings from being transparent in the community.
It's awesome. That's why we do it. Like, I think, everyone's welcome at these events, and I really enjoy sort of the diversity we have in our crowd. Like, we've got designers, engineers, product people, all sorts, like executives, recruiters. So, no, but we're just about promoting like this concept and this sort of ethos of product and customer centricity. But the thing that I've liked about, as you're saying, this sort of scale series is everyone is going to be at some point in their career in the future where they're a part of scale, and if we can share what we're learning, and they can benefit from that, and when they hit those situations, they know how to navigate that stuff. So, yeah.
Kind of sharing those, things do go wrong, but sharing those so hopefully it doesn't happen again, or people can kind of preempt that as they've heard the story.
Women in Digital, and there's a big event. Is that happened, or is it going to happen?
It is happening November 12th. We're officially in the countdown of days. So it's the Women in Digital Awards National Gala. We've got 700 people coming to the in-person as well as a virtual thing. It's very exciting. It's so cool kind of reading all the applications and getting the finalists and all of that. And then the winners will be announced on November 12th. So very excited about that.
I love that you guys promote diversity, and I'm an event junkie. So I track along with all of it and like pay close attention, but you guys do a really good job of putting on a really good event.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Enjoy your networking and mingling. So I'm going to check in with Lou here. Meta, how you going? Arms okay? Cool. Any questions rolling through? Okay. Hopefully the sound's working okay. We'll catch Lou's attention. See what's going on here. We're mingling. Yeah. Tea starter. Okay. We're going to weave through the crowd. Here we go. Scan back through here. Okay. Hey, Mick. How you going?
Good. How are you?
We're live.
Oh, that's scary.
Well, I'm here as the puppet. And I wanted people who are watching remote to feel connected and feel a part of it.
Well, you can't get much more real than this.
No, it's raw. It's real and raw. So, Lou, you've lined up someone for me to talk to.
I've just met Liz from TeachStarter. And I'm interested to hear her challenges with burnout and with the last year. Very new to TeachStarter. We were lucky to bring her back from the US. They nearly stole her from us. And now she's back with us in Australia. Yeah.
They stole me for a while. So I grew up in Australia, but I spent 20 years in California and came back in 2019. And then was like, what the heck do I do with my career? And, was very pleasantly surprised to discover a nascent scene here that I could definitely participate in.
Awesome. Can I steal Liz from you, Mick? We'll just go stand over here. It's just a little smidge quieter. So have you come to a ProductTank before?
I haven't. I'm a newbie.
Awesome. So how did you find out about us?
I've followed you guys on LinkedIn and Meetup for a while, and it's been on my to-do list, and I just finally bit the bullet. Here I am.
So I'm Jace. I'm one of the organizers. No, we've never even met before, so here we're networking and mingling. So how long you said you were out in the States and you've been back here for a while? How long has that been?
Came back in 2019. Yeah.
So give me that rundown of sort of some of the key places you've been.
Yeah, so cut my teeth as an analyst in kind of Ask.com, when Ask.com was a big thing many, many, many moons ago. Did some corporate development, so played a role in acquisitions of companies like Investopedia, About.com, which is now known as Dotdash, and then took the opportunity to be the CEO of Dictionary.com. Was with Dictionary for about 5 years. We ultimately sold it to a guy that just wanted to own the dictionary. And I kind of took that moment to have a break and had this big awakening that it was time for me to come home with my kids. As I said, I had no idea what that meant career-wise, but I just felt very, on a personal level, like it was time to get home. I was probably very burnt out at that point. I needed to be home and reconnect with home and earth and family. And then, yeah, I just started networking and trying to find my way here. I was really, really pleasantly surprised to find a nascent startup scene here in Brisbane. I had the impression that would only exist in Sydney when I came home. And then, let's see, I did a brief stint at Go1, which is a great experience, but not really, didn't really feel like home for me. And then Jill and Scott, the co-founders of TeachStarter, stepped out of the business last November, and I joined as the CEO to kind of take it to the next level for them.
That's very interesting. There's some brands that I recognize. They're very cool to have interacted with some of the things that you've been a part of. How many kids do you have?
3 boys.
Isn't Australia a great place for family?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I grew up here, and so I wanted that kind of wholesome life connected to earth, and I just wanted it to be easy for them. My children are mixed race, and I didn't want to have the conversation with my, at the time 12-year-old son about what to do if he encountered a police officer. And I'm like, I've got to get them out of here. This isn't where I want to be.
So, and you're talking about the nascent startup scene. So did you work with sort of these bigger companies and really have this feeling like you wanted to work with something more early stage?
Very much so. I think that, when I took over dictionary.com, it was its 20th anniversary. Like, it was 20 years. It was older than Google. It was, I think, as old as Yahoo. And, there were a few web giants that had survived, but we were one of the very few smaller companies that had survived that long. And what really excited me about Dictionary at the time, and what excites me about TeachStarter now, is just seeing so much potential in a product that customers really love, but hadn't really kind of grown into its full possibility as a product. And with those older, more established brands, you're kind of dragging along this baggage of like legacy stuff that you have to deal with, and the craft and the decisions that were right at a time, but they're not right now, and how do you undo them? And it really, I think, impedes creativity. And I feel like I've been moving earlier and earlier stage through my career. So when I joined TeachStarter, it was 7 years old. And, there's still a little bit of that legacy stuff to carry around, but definitely a lot more opportunity to kind of reinvent and create from scratch.
So with TeachStarter, there's a lot of teachers already on the platform, right? And a lot of good content kind of thing?
Yeah, we have about 60,000 paid subscribers, mostly Australia, starting to grow in the US.
So you've got this really good base. As a leader in that business and a product, dyed-in-the-wool product person, what's the number one thing that you're doing with them to help them get to that next step and continue with the traction?
Yeah, so because TeachStarter is essentially a library of content for teachers, it's been historically an incredibly content-driven, content-led business, and I think the easiest way to describe it is I'm trying to infuse product and technology as the kind of driving function of the business. I think having all the content we have is an amazing pillar that we can build on. But it's how can we integrate that more into the teacher's experience? How can we provide value that goes beyond that? I guess the way to describe it is our market exists because teachers a lot of inefficiencies where there's 2 third-grade teachers next door to each other in neighboring classrooms, and they're both creating the same content to teach the same material to their students. And so along come businesses like us, and it's like, well, we'll create it for you. But now the problem that I see that exists in the market is teachers, instead of spending time creating content, they're just spending time finding content. And so we think there's a big opportunity to solve a problem around curation, and about how then teachers can integrate that content into all the different tools that they're using to deliver it in the classroom. And we haven't quite figured out what that is, but I think, the simplest, easy answer to your question is we're becoming a product-led organization.
Awesome. I think, so we were kind of scouting with 3 potential questions. One of them was on burnout. Was that the one that you were? Burnout. Okay. Well, tell us about your perspectives or experiences with burnout.
Yes. So I recently said to a friend, I have a goal that I'm going to work 38 hours a week, and that's my goal. And I've got some work to do to get there, but that's my goal. And she just laughed in my face. She just laughed at me. She goes, that's not you. That's never going to happen. You're too driven, ambitious, focused for that ever to be you. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But I at least want the time I'm working to be kind of more impact focused. And I think that I'm a single mom. I've got 3 young sons. I'm running a company. I'm working ridiculous hours. And there are definitely times when it's just the wind falls out of my sails. And I'm like, how do I keep going? And I just want to throw a tantrum. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, but I want to throw a tantrum and tell everyone to go away. And it's like, well, that's, when I get that feeling, I'm like, okay, it's a really good signal. I need to be self-aware because I don't want to really actually throw a tantrum. It just feels that way in the moment. So what can I... Okay, so stop, get curious about how I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this way? How have I gotten myself to this point? And honestly, the best thing I do at that moment is just unplug and remove myself from the situation and catch up. And I think it's a bit, it would be all well and good to say, well, I should kind of moderate my effort more over time so I don't get burned out. But the reality is who I am as a person is I'm all in or I'm all out. And the way I can moderate is be all in, but know that I'm going to need breaks along the way. And so I invest in taking myself on holidays because, and fully unplugging for a couple of weeks at a time so that I can recover, bounce back and move on. I think the other thing that leads to burnout is not being well connected to the why and the why I'm creating and the why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if I can really get very clear on what my mission, vision, and purpose is, and certainly that from the company perspective, but I also do that for myself. My personal mission is to create joy and abundance and share it with people I love. And if I'm burned out, it means I'm disconnected from my personal mission, and it's time to go reflect on that and think about that and remember why it matters.
2 super valuable tips for tonight's topic: being aware of how you're feeling and then doing things to kind of regulate that, take care of yourself, and be plugged into your mission. That's incredible. Yeah, very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good to chat with you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I might catch up with you later. Sounds like you've got a lot to share. Yeah. Were any questions coming through? Any chats or anything like that? No. I'm getting a little flashing light on my mic, so I'm going to go refresh my batteries. Now, oh, it doesn't stop. It can't stop. It's got to keep rolling. So I can take it, or you can just kind of keep shooting around and... Yeah, help people to feel part of it, but I will be right back, and we'll grab Lou. Okay, it is hit and miss whether I am coming through on this signal, but I'm going to check in and see if I've got someone else. It looks like I'm coming through. You have no one. You can always find someone I know. All good. All good. All good. Okay. All right. We've got time for one more. Nick, how you going? Yeah, good, mate.
Good to actually see you in person again.
Thank you. Can I do an impromptu chat with you for the people watching online
Totally.
and the puppets? So tell us who you are, what do you do, who do you work with?
Cool. Okay, so I'm Michael. I'm from Cubico. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer there, which means that I wear a bunch of hats, some of which include product delivery management and HR. And yeah, we're currently growing, rapidly growing our team and the number of products and customers that we're serving. So part of what I'm hoping to get out of tonight is some ways of dealing with burnout, because I'm feeling spread very, very thin right now and not 100% sure what to do about it.
That's really transparent of you. So what sort of like, if you mind sharing at all, like what has been maybe one or two signals that you've kind of been sensing that?
Yeah, I think actually feeling able to operate effectively is probably one of the main things, like feeling spread across so many different areas that you don't really know which one you're going to do next, and sort of ending up in a paralysis mode, which isn't really helpful for anybody, I don't think. So I think it's a pretty clear sign that things aren't going in the direction that they should go. I'm a fairly practical kind of person, so at the end of the day, there's a job to be done, and if the job can't be done because of what is actually being laid out and the way that you're doing it, then that's something that should actually be fixed.
I'm getting this picture of a robot with a wind up in the back, and it's just like winding down.
Just maybe a few wound a little bit too tightly to try to operate faster.
Well, tell us about Cubico, like what it is and kind of the problems that the product solves.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a GP, practice management analytics tool. So what we do is we provide dashboards for insights for medical practices to help them figure out whether or not they're running things as effectively as they can. Because we've got a lot of medical practices that may be very, very busy, but they might not be operating in the most efficient and effective kind of way. And Medicare is a big, tough beast to work with, and they might not always be 100% aware of doing things the way that that Medicare can make possible for them.
That's awesome. So providing sort of insights and efficiency. You've been coming to these events for yonks. Like we've been going for 3-4 years, and I don't know if it was the very first one you came to. It wouldn't surprise me, but it was like.
Sure that I did. Yeah, I think that you and James hosted that one, and it was this little thing that we were going to try. It was born out of England, and is a worldwide global type event. But we're going to kick it off in Brisbane and see how it goes. I think we probably had about 15 people at that first event, and it's grown and grown from there. Really excited actually at the last couple to have been chatting to a lot of physical product managers. So we had a lot of SaaS and software product managers to start off with, and we're starting to see people from other areas as well, which is a completely different set of issues and challenges and opportunities to deal with. But great to hear their perspective about what they're going through and what are the main issues that they're having to deal with.
That's been one of my little missions, is to try and find physical product managers. There's not many, and product marketing managers as well. But I'm happy to say we have had a couple events on that topic. But it's been so good to journey with you over these years. What would you say? What have you gotten out of being connected with ProductTank? Because I mean, you keep coming, so we must be helping you somehow.
It's the community. It's actually getting to meet people who are all from different backgrounds and have different experiences, and particularly product as well. I think is a really good opportunity for people who actually are very diverse. Like we get people who started off as software people who are now product managers. We get people who started off in marketing who are now product managers. We get people who started off in operations who are now product managers, and all of them, add this different flavor to the stew of product management that we've got happening. And there's always something to learn, and I'm just like a sponge sucking it all up and going, how can I use this in what I do on a day-to-day basis? I get a lot of problems that I have to deal with, and the more tools and techniques I can come up with to deal with them, the better.
That's awesome. That's kind of what we're chasing. Help people, share the learning, support one another.
And it is a very sharing community. I think is great as well. Like, there's opportunities to learn. We don't need to hoard this language and our learnings and keep them to ourselves. We can share it and help the world make better solutions to problems that people have.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to keep mingling. Good chatting with you. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot without any warning. That's awesome. See ya. Okay, I think we're about to start. So I'd say we don't have any time left for any more networking chats. We're going to go back and set up. I might actually take it off you, and then I can get the whole rig set up. So we're going to journey. All right. Okay. Here we go. Walk with me. We're set. Patrice. So we're going to kick off now in a little bit. I'm just going to set everyone in the tripod in the room. We will be ready for you.
See you guys online. Bye.
All right, here we go. It's like being here. This is a new thing for us. Never done this kind of interactive deal before. I'm looking forward to sharing this one post the event to see if it generates some ideas. So think of yourself as the really good person that has come and sat in the room like early when they give the announcement, instead of the bad person who like drags their heels and waits forever. Do you want me to? I'm kicking off. Everyone's being so good. This doesn't actually help you hear me. It's just for the people who are watching remote. We tried to make this interactive tonight, and hopefully that's worked out. I'm really excited to share their product tanks to see what they think of the format. So we are ProductTank, and welcome. We're in over 200 cities globally, and we're here and we exist to serve the community with inspiring content and support, friendships, connections, and whenever there's a question, we want to be that group that you can come to and try and ask on like how to navigate things. That's the most important. Like, you can go online and you can watch talks and you can learn. But the value of this community for me is I know that there's a group of people that I can check in with, and when I'm trying to navigate something, I can ask, and get advice and things like that. So really great to have everyone here and people watching online. Go through my slides. So yeah, I've kind of covered some of that stuff. We're trying to figure out what we are doing for the rest of this year, which is running out pretty quickly. We are hoping to have an end-of-year event, but like every year, we leave it too late for the planning. So we might be able to pull together some sponsors and have like a nice big thing. There might be like a group up with the UX folks, which sometimes happens. So as soon as I know, you'll know, right? So we'll put the word out on that. We do have some new stuff starting. So down Gold Coast, we've started some events. Greg Lesor, who's relocated down there and who's working remote, has fired up a whole series of events, and we had our first one the other day, and I was kind of jealous because they got more people to their first event than we did in Brisbane. So, but we did actually advertise their event through our list. So anyway, but yeah, so this is their next event. It's November 18th down the coast. Check in on Meetup, and it'll give you details about where and all that sort of thing. If you're up for the drive, or if you live there, even better. But yes, and I think we have one of the speakers here tonight who we did a little chat with before the thing out, so that'll be on YouTube. Going back one here. So we have also some training opportunities available here in an APAC-friendly time zone type thing. And I've heard the teacher's really dynamic. He's a really good teacher, and he's really passionate about product management. So that kind of comes across in the course. But this is the Foundations thingo. So this is on November 9th and 10th. It's 2 half-day things, and it costs a lot. So hopefully work can pay for it. But yeah, check in and get registered. So I think this is where I hand over to Patrice. I'm gonna take this with me and plug in the super cool mic. Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, thanks for all being here tonight, and a big thanks to Askable for hosting this event for ProductTank this evening, and to the wonderful Ash, which I'm going to introduce in a second. So as Jake said, we've been having real conversations with startups around Brisbane this year and the challenges that brings, and this could not be more true than tonight. Is a real issue that many of us have faced or may face in the future. So it's important to normalise the conversation around it. As our speaker tonight, Ivory, has experienced, burnout can seemingly come out of nowhere, unexpectedly, and often be confusing, especially when most of us product people absolutely love what we do. So let's get real with Ash tonight. Ash Ivory is Head of Product at Askable, where we are tonight. Ash is the head of product, sorry, I'm repeating myself. Most asking the hard questions in an easy way. Splitting hairs over good user experience. Don't worry, she says that she studied graphic design. Dodging gender norms. Ash is openly queer, helping her product team to find and solve the right problems. She's passionate about building great product. Upskilling the office in brewing coffee, and riding her motorcycle, which she says is basically meditation. I feel the same way as at 45. I didn't think that's where you're going to go to. No, I feel like that's meditation. It's rushing yourself. Anyway, she loves lending a hand wherever possible to generate new experiences, acquire new skills, and most importantly, to get the job done. Well, tonight, Ash, we look forward to hearing from you and your experiences. And again, huge thanks for Askable for hosting us tonight. Over to you, Ash.
When I talk, I'm pretty casual, and I'd like to just kind of have a conversation. So the slides kind of guide me, and I kind of ramble a bit on slides as well, so it gives you something to read and look at when I'm rambling as well. So, and I thought this was kind of a bit funny in relation to burnout. It's kind of one of those really basic pieces of tech advice that we kind of give people when things break. You turn it off and turn it back on again. And I think it's somewhat symbolic of kind of what happens when you hit burnout. You kind of want to just switch off and switch back on again. I wanted you to laugh on this one. A bit about me. So when I'm not doing product or in the product world, I have way too many hobbies and things on the go, but that's just kind of me. You'll kind of get to know that, I guess. 2 beautiful step kids. Charlotte looks way too grown up in that photo, and it freaks me out every time I look at it. That's me on my wedding day with my lovely wife at the powerhouse. I ride a lot of motorbikes, a lot. I really love it, and you won't shut me up about it if we get on that track. So we'll do that later. My dog Frank, who is a nemesis and he's just a pain in the backside, but I love him. I take a lot of photos and I love coffee, like Patrice said. So I want to start with kind of the question of what is burnout. I think burnout looks very different for a lot of different people, and I think specifically for product people it looks really, really different. And I think we often treat ourselves like superheroes, and we probably shouldn't. So burnout is also known as hilling out. Is when you spin the wheels of a motorcycle while keeping the frame of the bike stationary. It's true. It's what a burnout is, but in a really beautiful metaphorical way, it kind of is what burnout feels like. Keeping the frame stationary and the wheels spinning, you kind of feel like you want to go somewhere, like you're trying to get somewhere, but you're just not really. And I think it's a really, really beautiful metaphor for what burnout feels like. What it really is, according to the 11th revision, it was amazing that they've done 11 revisions already for the International Classification of Diseases. But burnout is a syndrome conceptualised as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's stress or a workplace environment that's not successfully managed. And I think we all kind of, I'm sure you're all starting to think about maybe a time where you've gone through this or felt it, or somewhere you've been in the past, and maybe you've moved on. And that's what obviously the real definition is. So what does it look like? Again, like I said, I think for product managers it looks really different, but it's not to say that a lot of people don't suffer from burnout and that you're not kind of vulnerable at any point, both professionally and personally. But anxiety, stress, with irritability and sometimes a lot of anger. And I think as we go through this stuff tonight, I really want you to reflect on whether this is something that you're feeling, whether it's something that you've experienced in the past, or something that might be inkling now that you're starting to feel it, and hopefully we can open the conversation up and kind of normalise some of those feelings. Depression and low mood. I think we've all kind of felt a lot of this with COVID as well, and I think that's where things can kind of creep in without you really realising what's going on. I've blended a few of these together just to kind of paint a picture a bit. Maybe depression and low mood comes with sleep disturbances and lack of motivation or passion. Withdrawal from others, so really not wanting to talk to your team or be involved in conversations. With nausea, maybe low libido and even fatigue. And you can kind of see how a lot of these feelings or what it looks like can, translate to both your personal and professional life, which is kind of scary when you start to think about work really, really affecting home life. Withdrawal from others, we talked about that one, and loss of focus. So with memory loss, lack of care and even brain fog, which I think you can feel on a good day as a product manager, but I'm sure you know, when you're really feeling low, that can really put you off your game. I'm going to talk really, really candidly tonight. I think it's the right thing when talking about this topic, and this is sort of based on a real, you know, my real experience. But I wanted to call out that I'm going to talk a lot about outfit, and I still have huge admiration. Bruce, the founder, and I still talk today. But I think it's really important for me to say these are my opinions and this is how I feel and what I reflected on it. And I'm sure, you know, that there's a lot of other reflection that can kind of happen tonight as well, on the other side of the fence as well. But I wanted to be mindful of that and talk about the fact that this is my perspective. I'm sharing that, but there's other people out there that may have experienced things a little bit differently to me at Outfit as well. So I started at Outfit in 2016, which is quite a long time ago. It doesn't really feel like it anymore. There were 4 of us in a room, so there was myself, Bruce, and pretty much 2 devs, and 1 client. That was Red Hat. It was our first client, and I was so excited. I think the day I met Andy Fitzsimons, who was one of the main guys at Red Hat that kind of brought the conceptualization of Outfit about, he described me as keen, and that was a pretty cool word, and I've kind of, you know, kept it pretty close to my motivations today. And so we were a really growing startup, and it looks just like every startup does. You're growing, scaling, trying to put out fires as well as grow. There's a whole lot going on. And sort of 5.5 years later, we had transitioned into a rapidly expanding scale up. And so we've gone from 4 people, 1 location in Brisbane, to growing almost globally. So we started putting offices in the US and the UK, and we were hiring everywhere. And while I was writing this, I tried to kind of keep it in chronological order, because it kind of highlights basically where I sort of started by finding that job listing, and then some of the journey that I went through as we started to scale. And there's a couple of I guess key points on here that I really wanted to call out. Some of them, you know, so I sold, initially when I started at Outfit, I was in a sales position. It wasn't sold to me like that, which was awesome. And Bruce has got this fantastic way of selling a vision, as a lot of founders do. And he said, you know, Ash, you can come in and you'll be consulting on brand and marketing. I was like, this is going to be sick. I can't wait. And it was just selling SaaS, and it was selling SaaS to some really uptight, intense people, and I kind of learned how to adapt and how to present myself, you know, in a slightly different light when I needed to. And so selling to universities was really different to selling to franchises, but I did it. One of my largest deals in that, you know, sales stint that I had really pales in comparison to the size of deals, you know, the real sales team were doing. But when I started, 80K annually, that was great. That was like, you know, that was another 3 months of runway. Yeah, so, you know, selling an 80K deal was pretty awesome. I hired over 20 people across the business, and this was my first experience with interviewing people. I'd always sat on the other side of the table, and holy shit, I was in charge, you know. And so hiring 20 good people and understanding how to hire and start to hone those skills was a really exciting achievement for me. Recognised as Team Member of the Year, probably when there was 4 of us and it was just me selling. So, you know, what were they really going to do? I had really deep connections with clients, and I really pride myself on that even today. At Askable, I still, you know, reach out to clients. We get on the phone and talk about what they want to see out of the product, and really still keep in touch with with our end users and not just, you know, the decision maker. I moved into product, so when I started there was no product team, and that was a really really weird but kind of commonplace thing in startups. It's everyone kind of owns the product until they don't, and until shit's falling apart, and then you kind of need to, you know, heap a lot of the problems on someone, which I'm sure you all know. Visited the UK, got to know London really well, and that's kind of the other side of being part of a startup, right? You kind of get to blend your personal and professional life together for the better, and I got to know London really well. I interviewed, you know, a lot of our initial CS members there, and they're those kind of highlight moments. Really some awesome features that I was seriously proud of. Went to, you know, almost made it to SASTA. I was over there when COVID hit, so we flew into San Fran. Oh, always like more disappointed than I was. I got the email and they said, look, we're really sorry, it's cancelled, and I went and booked a motorbike and rode around San Fran for the weekend, and it was brilliant. But yeah, got to go to SASTA based on you know, my identity being obviously a non-binary, and you know, able to kind of represent people, and you know, kind of being given that opportunity and being recognised, which was really nice. Spoke at client conferences, and that was amazing, you know, being trusted to talk to over 300 staff about, at the time, marketing and brand production, and you know, it was a franchise conference as well, so this is their livelihood. They pay a lot of money, you know, for the services that we provide, and so to be able to steer, you know, 20 minutes of their conference was quite an honour. But things kind of started to go to shit a bit, and I think the thing with burnout, and this is probably one of the main points that I really want to make, is that you kind of don't know when it's happening initially, and you can start to explain away a lot of what you're feeling, and you may feel like you're going through a stressful week, and then a week turns into a month, and then a month turns into 6, and before you know it, you know, you're in a pretty bad place, and you're not leading the team properly, or you're not delivering your best work. But I had kind of associated the feelings that I was having and starting to have at Outfit with just, this is startup life, this is normal. People are hugely, you know, stretching themselves in these roles, and we're always striving to, you know, hit the next target or break into the next market. And that type of behaviour becomes really normalised, and I think that's the thing that I'm quite passionate about, kind of challenging, is not to normalise that stuff. And so I was trying to, you know, put my opinion forward with key product decisions, and people weren't really listening, or there was a better reason to build something in a slightly different way. I cried several times at work alone and in front of my team. There was a day where we were having a really tough meeting, and the team was being tough on me, and so they should, right? I wasn't leading properly, and I was sitting like on a stool in the corner of the room, and we were at sort of our normal table, and I just kind of broke down and just sobbed. And I think in that moment, the pressure that was sort of being produced by the team just kind of dissipated, and they were like, holy shit, what's wrong, are you okay? And I kind of opened up a little bit, but that was one of those key moments where I realised, okay, startup life and the way that startups scale, it's not necessarily the same as, you know, the way, I guess, larger companies do it. And that was a really scary moment for me, because I realised that perhaps being that little bit vulnerable might put me at risk of, you know, my team not respecting me, or my team not really knowing that I could lead them. More on that later, but you know, that's a pretty shitty moment. That probably shouldn't happen. Or if it does happen, it should happen, I think, in a safer environment. I almost lost Jen, my fiance. We were engaged for, we had quite a long engagement, about 3 years, and we almost broke up from the stress and my absence, I guess. And not that I wasn't physically there, but I wasn't there. You know, I wasn't there when I was home. I was always thinking about outfit. I was always thinking about, we need to get this deal. We need to, you know, make this next target. We're behind with, you know, these product features. We're not delivering for this client. And especially as you start to, so outfits in an enterprise situation, and a lot of our clients have really high expectations of the software you deliver and how you do it. And probably one thing that's pretty common with startups is that, you know, you don't quite know what the fuck you're doing. So you don't really have all of your ducks in a row. You just hope you can run fast enough for that to happen. And that's a calculated risk, and at times you'll meet that demand and you'll nail it and the team will celebrate together, but sometimes it doesn't end like that. And it starts to look like a cumulative stress in the team and across all teams. And so, yeah, Jen was like, what are you doing? You know, you know, you're not the same person you were 3 years ago. I regretted not speaking out on key team issues as well. And so I think, again, with a startup, there's a lack of maturity around HR and how you speak to each other and where the bounds are. And a lot of this doesn't come from a horrible, you know, negative place. It just comes from learning and trying to learn together as a team. And so things that I knew were right or things that I knew were wrong, I wasn't necessarily speaking up about, and I really regret that. And I think I can be a little bit introverted when it comes to, you know, my feelings and maybe not acting on something, and that kind of really started to weigh on me. Again, didn't set work-life balance boundaries, and also felt really guilty when I did go home early and some of the other team were there. And that's, I mean, I think that one's a really, really key one, especially with COVID and the fact that you're not even really, your commute's like 3 seconds to your kitchen now. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, still being treated for depression today, but it's manageable. But, you know, that's kind of residual. Like, I have to take these stupid little pills because I didn't look after my mental health early. And I think it's important that we address and acknowledge things like that as well, because I think it's a little bit taboo and people kind of understand that, oh, well, if you're dealing with something like that, you can't be like a functioning member of society. You totally can be. But, you know, you've got to manage it. I didn't, again, not speaking up and not being direct about product decisions, I felt that I was losing control of the product direction, and that I wasn't being the voice and the leader that you need to be. And a big part of being a product leader is just, it's kind of like being a parent. You just say the same shit over and over and over and over and hope that it kind of gets in eventually. And it is that, and you have to be excited about it every day, but being excited about it every day means you kind of need to believe in it, and you need to back yourself, and you need to know that it's right. And I think I kind of, I started to doubt myself and my own decisions kind of through this whole list, right? And before you know it, you're kind of at a point where you feel the whole weight on your shoulders for the whole business. You're not proud of how, you know, you're leading or supporting your team, and you question your own worth and capability, you feel useless, and then you're burnt out. And that's kind of in a stream of consciousness really how it kind of happened for me. And then to give you just to really hit the nail on the head, because I'm sure that list wasn't long enough, I was anxious to go to, you know, weekly team lead meetings, which you shouldn't be. Like, they're the meetings where you talk about the stuff that matters, and yes, the stuff that you're worried about, but also the stuff that you're equally excited about. I felt the weight of the business on my shoulders. I had really low mood from the start of the day, and I think this was the one that this was the key moment that I realised something was really, really wrong. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to interact with my team, and I forgot how to celebrate the win. So my team was still doing good work, And they were feeling a little bit of the pressure, but they weren't burnt out like I was, because I had been there for, 5 years and kind of had that baggage, right? And so they were winning and I wasn't celebrating, and that's not fair, because you need to celebrate the wins. And I think startups, again, they're kind of a bit crap at that. They kind of forget to celebrate the wins, because there is so many goals that they kind of set for themselves, that boards set, that UBC's set, and before you know it, you kind of you're going through the motions, you tick the win off, and then you move on. I developed a lot of brain fog. I am also ADHD, and so this is kind of like the perfect storm. So having brain fog and also really needing to check myself and keep myself focused day to day, and I've sort of learnt ways to deal with that. But when you're in this mindset, it's really hard to continue to have clarity, to deliver direction. And I felt people could push me off course easily, where I'd normally stand pretty strong on product decisions. I was like, yeah, whatever, cool, we'll do it, fine. And I began second guessing things that I knew to be true, or I once believed in. And all of these things are really scary in a product leader. Like, this person is not going to make the right decisions, for the product. So that's kind of that's what it can look like. It's what it looked like for me. But what causes it, and I think this is the really key part, because hopefully there's a lot in here that, or maybe one or two things that you can take away and implement, in your team, or even just in yourself if you don't necessarily lead a team. So there's a couple of key things that cause it, and this is the Mayo Clinic or Mayo, whatever school you went to. And these are the most common causes, right? So an inability to influence decisions that affect your job. And I was like, yep. Unclear job expectations. And this, I think, in a startup, you kind of get this is going to happen. You're probably going to have to take the bins out. You're also probably going to have to sell and jump on intercom and like help people through, and then maybe put up a few pull-up banners at an event and whatever. So there are some unclear job expectations. Dysfunctional workplace dynamics, which is a really interesting one and can look like a myriad of things, and we'll get a little bit into that, and lack of social support and work-life imbalance that we talked about before. I think the social support is a really important one, especially when you're kind of withdrawing from, maybe people outside of work as well. And you can kind of see how they all link in and how they all kind of fuel each other if it starts, right? So, inability to influence decisions, and I wanted to put a couple of questions on here that you can almost ask yourself, but you should have answers for as well. So, how are product decisions made? And I put really made in brackets, because there's a way that product decisions are made, and then perhaps there's an undercurrent in the business that actually drives real product decisions. And if the really made and the surface level made aren't the same thing, there's a problem. Who really makes those decisions? So the product team, right? And with everyone else's consultation, but who really makes those decisions? And in all these questions, it's okay if the answers aren't traditional ones, but what's not okay is that there's not an acknowledgement of that. So if you work in a business where your CEO makes the decisions and he or she or they makes them whenever they want, well, it's cool if that's communicated and if you all know that, right? But if there's a perception that the product team makes it, but they don't actually have their hands on the wheel, then you're going to have a problem, and it will cause issues. And at Outfit, I don't think that any of these things were openly discussed in that manner. And so where there was a little bit of incoherence, we weren't acknowledging it. And it kind of continued to snowball from there. If the CEO doesn't agree, or other stakeholders for that matter, if they don't agree, what happens? And it's kind of like it's like a prenup, or like having a conversation of like, so if we break up, like, are you going to take the TV, or like, what's going to happen there? Like, things come out when you're faced with those stressful moments, right? But if you haven't had the discussion when you're feeling sane and balanced, there's going to be hard conversations that happen that you're probably not going to be happy with. And so if a stakeholder doesn't agree, okay, how do we deal with it? And it shouldn't result in, background conversations or things happening that, everyone's not really in acknowledgement of. Are you clear on the vision, strategy, and way of working? And I mean, that's a basic one, but a lot of companies just don't have this conversation, and those things may be set, but with all of these other questions, that can kind of be abandoned pretty quickly. Dysfunctional workplace dynamics. This can look really basic, and it can look like Pan's Labyrinth, depending on how old the company is and just, how much kind of politics you've been working through, and how much you've been, really mindful of that and trying to clean it up. So are you backing each other? Like, are you seriously backing each other? Do you know what that looks like? If you're on a client call with, a customer success manager, and a client asks for a feature, what happens? How do you back each other? What's the protocol? What's the process? I know if Cole's on a call and someone asks for a feature, she's like, that's great, thanks, I'll pass that feedback on to Ash. That's it. And that's what we've had the conversation, and that's what we've agreed. Again, it's not that there's a right or wrong way, it's just you have to be aligned on it. Does your vision and strategy align teams or divide? And this is weird, because your first answer is, and your gut is like, well, yeah, of course it aligns teams. Like, it's the thing we're all driving towards, right? But if you really strip it back, is there contradictory metrics? Are there things that this team can't possibly deliver if they don't go and promise the world to clients? So your team will tell you that really quickly, because they'll be feeling that, day to day. Are there meetings before meetings? This is one that's like, if you see this happening, you kind of need to work out how you're going to address this and why it's happening. Because sometimes this is okay. There might be information that needs to be shared, or people that need to get on the same page. But if this is about rallying support in a meeting and not having a radically candid conversation, then this will destroy you, whether you're a product or not. Is there psychological safety? This is a really hard one, because you don't really know what it looks like until you're really vulnerable and you need it. And you'll sit in a room and you'll kind of realise, I need to be honest, I need to speak candidly about how I feel about, delivering this feature or this person's performance or whatever it is. And you'll know in an instant whether you are psychologically safe or not. So if you have or haven't felt that, like, it's important, and you need to explore it, and you need to understand where your leadership team truly sits on it. Is there authenticity in your team? And I wish I knew who told me this. I can't remember. I may have read it in a book, but it was along the lines of what someone says, what they think, and what they do. They're aligned. And that's not true for a lot of people, right? But there's certain moments where this kind of really needs to count. And if, at the very least, the one person that you can understand is yourself. So if that's not happening for you, again, there's a problem. And then work-life imbalance. And I think in some ways, to me, it shouldn't be last on the list, but it's the one that almost suffers the last. I think that life balance, the people at home. But I do kind of really get on my soapbox about it because I think it's the one that pushes you towards burnout the fastest. The other ones you kind of, you find your way, you know, you can kind of come in and out of levels of stress, but this one will really chip away at you. Is it common for the team, not just product, but is it common for the team to work after hours consistently? And again, I'm not saying you can't run hard at something. That's required, right, in life sometimes. But if you are noticing that this is consistent, this is week after week, day after day, there's a problem. It's not balance. Have you noticed many of the team calling in sick consistently? Does your Monday morning meeting look like crickets? Or, you know, do you notice that the majority of absences come in this time? And that's, I can't get out of bed on Monday, or I'd rather work from home, I'd rather not interact with the team. So sometimes we have COVID, you know, and where you've got to be overly cautious, but in times where you feel it's appropriate that people can get up and go to work, if they're not, there's a problem. Are there band-aid fixes for team members who are stressed or burnt out? So throwing a week of leave at someone's great to kind of relieve some of the pressure, but then what are you doing about it? What's happening after that? Yeah, cool. You know, Joe's had a week off and now we've thrown them straight back in the deep end and they're back at it again. And so it's a band-aid fix. It's, you know, and this kind of annoys me the most because in some ways I think there's kind of this disproportionate relief that's put on time off. And that time off doesn't mean anything if you don't do anything with it. If that person sat in their home dreading going back to work in 7 days, it hasn't done anything. So it's what you're helping that person do with the time off as well. And you can do that as an employer, and as a team member and as a peer, you can have these conversations. And does the culture glorify the hustle? And again, like I said before, yeah, sometimes you have to hustle. My mother used to say to me, sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. And yeah, sometimes you do. But if there are awards for people that hustle the most, that stay the longest, that hit those things, that's bullshit. And you are glorifying the wrong thing, and you are going to silence the people that are sitting in that burnout, in that stress, and you will lose them. I found this, I thought it was pretty cool. I'm pretty visual as a person. I was like, oh yeah, I get it. This is like when you start a new job, when you date someone new, when you get a new motorbike, whatever. Onset of stress. We've got this big feature we need to ship. Or we're onboarding a bank. That's going to be stressful, right? But you kind of have this feeling that it goes away. But when it doesn't go away, it turns into chronic stress. And then it becomes the norm. You're like, oh, I'm just, busy. Yeah, just always hustling. And then burnout. And maybe here, if someone says to you, it feels like there's something wrong, you're not yourself, maybe you can go, oh, fuck, I'm burnt out. I should do something about this. What could I do about it? Cole, could you help me? And maybe you break the cycle. But if you don't, it becomes habitual burnout. And habitual burnout is terrifying. I read these terms and I was like, are you kidding me? Chronic sadness? Chronic sadness. That's such a, I remember one of my teachers who was like, I was like grade 2. And she was, to me, old as and she was like, oh, I have chronic fatigue. And I was like, that's what you get when, that's so far away. But you can get this now, right? and I'm not trying to be ageist in any way, chronic fatigue and chronic sadness, that's hectic. With irritability and sometimes a lot of anger, and this was, my stepkids copped this. I have, my stepson Aiden is deaf in one ear and just wants to go at everything, and man did he cop it, and it wasn't fair. Depression with sleep disturbances and lack of motivation or passion, just couldn't get out of bed, just couldn't. Burnout syndrome, again, that mentioned with nausea and low libido and even fatigue, and then potentially chronic fatigue with memory loss, lack of care, and even brain fog. Lack of care. There were people that I truly cared about at Outfit that I knew they needed me and I just couldn't do it. And I was a true leader in that business and I couldn't give them the time. And that's like, there's nothing more debilitating than that, I think, when you know someone needs you and maybe they're not even quite at this point yet, right? They just need help and you can't be there. The oxygen mask thing, put yours on first. So as a summary, burnout symptoms are so embedded in your life that you are likely to experience a significant ongoing mental, physical or emotional problem as opposed to occasionally experiencing stress or burnout. I'm not trying to make this too depressing either, but I think this is the tension that happens when you talk about real stuff and you sit in it for a little bit. All right, so you've spotted it. You've spotted something on those phases, and even if you're just a little bit stressed out, do this, right? So you don't get to those later stages. Be present, listen to your gut. And so this is a little bit of rambling, and I'm just going to read it. As a manager, one of your most important roles is to serve as an advocate for your team. This means making sure your direct reports are well taken care of and supported. And you can't do that if you're burnt out. As a team member, so I know that not everyone listening or in the room is managing people, so put yourself first. As a team member, your most important role is to serve yourself first and be vocal about your needs. And I think a lot of people lack the ability to do this, is to just speak up. And that's why that psychological safety point is so important. This is especially true when it comes to burnout, depending on the reason for the burnout. The way you advocate for your employees and yourself can take on different forms, but simple recognition is the first step. And I think this was one of the things that we probably didn't do early enough at Outfit, is recognise that this is a thing. So there's a couple of things that I've sort of summarised as ways to combat this or even break the cycle, right? So reiterate your North Star, and this is a, regardless of burnout, this is something that I think all good startups do and visit quite regularly. So by ensuring everyone is clear on the North Star, your KPIs, whatever framework you use, whatever you call it, you then have a powerful shield which allows your product team to say no. So if you know what you're running at, and if that aligns, well great, of course you're going to do that. But if you need to shield the team from something, reiterating the North Star that everyone's agreed on, and you know the way you make decisions, and you know that process is consistent, then you're going to use the North Star or your metrics the way that you want to. Say no, be clear, mean it. So just say no. Just say no, we're not going to do that. And it's surprising what happens when you say no to a client on a call. They don't throw their laptop out the window. They don't get on the phone to the CEO and pull the contract. They kind of get it. They kind of respect you for saying no. And say it twice if necessary. If they didn't hear it the first time, say, no, we can't, we really can't do that. If that fails, ask politely, well, how can I do that? How do you think I could deliver that? So these are my, these are my priorities. This is what I believe is important. This is what you're asking for. How do we do both? And a lot of people will just balk at the challenge because of course they will. They're, oh yeah, no, you're right. And I do want some of those features anyway, so that's cool. Don't take it personally, so don't always take the stress of your team personally or your peers personally, but personally look after it. So when you've spotted burnout, whether it's from a systematic failing or a one-off oversight, do something about it, learn from it, implement something. It's only a fail if you let it happen again and again. Tonight I haven't really given you like a list of resources or anything, because I think that would take us down a rabbit hole, and there's way too many things that depend on the context. But there are ways that you can work this out. You just have to be deliberate about it. Protect your time and your team's time. We kind of talked about that with saying no, but it's not just about getting your team in the conversations where they say no. It's about you protecting the team from that. I think at Outfit I allowed too many people to access the product team too often, in a hope that enough of us saying no would, kind of get the point across. But really, I should have been the one fronting that and saying no for them when they needed the time to get on with the work. It's important to be connected with your team, especially with COVID, but it doesn't mean connected all the time as well. I think that's just an important call out in general as well. You need to have that time that you protect to do deep thinking. I know when Meta's got her headphones on and she's concentrating on something, not to talk to her about like lunch, whatever. Think about more flexible schedules. Well, we've proven that working from home does have benefits. Be open to this and strike the right balance for each team member. We're all adults. You can do something for someone and something different for someone else. And if you're not strong enough to have that conversation, if you don't have those adults on your team, there's a problem. And this is the best way that you can support people, right? Everyone's different. So work out what is truly going to give that person energy to get up the next day. And that means you kind of have to have a personal conversation, like really personal, and that's okay, do it. Get your hands on meaningful resources, so I've touched on that. Again, reiterating this point that a day off is helpful, flexibility is helpful, but working toward long-term understanding and change to address core issues causing burnout is vital. Advocating for wellness and mental health professional support goes a long way. So yeah, days off are helpful, but if your company's not truly addressing this at the core, like if there's something that keeps pushing people to the level of, a little bit of stress and then so on and so forth, and you're not addressing that core, then you're only going to continue to, to fight the symptoms. This is like, so I stole this from an article, and it was the coolest thing I read, and it kind of reminds me of Shape Up a little bit. If you've done any reading on Shape Up, it's sort of interesting to this. So burst mode, this isn't some untapped resource or secret to success. This is a mode that exists occasionally, and when necessary, it can be extremely effective to rally a team around a sprint like this. But you will need to refill their tanks. These are my words. I've just kind of taken the burst mode and the rest sprints. The middle one's one I wrote as well. But yeah, it's like NOS in cars. I'm not a big car head, but it reminds me of that. You hear the guys and in Fast and the Furious, they don't just hit the NOS button the whole way through. They know when they need to use it, and it's kind of the same with the team. Have something in their tank so when you really need to get something over the line, you can, but this isn't a strategy for success, and this kind of frustrates me as well, because I think a lot of startups abuse this way too much. What is best for you and the team? This is a little hard to communicate. This is always a little hard to communicate initially, especially when the company's best interests come first, and that's the status quo. But people do business with people. Startups exist because of people. So prioritising the team first would net you far better results, right? But people just kind of don't get this. They always put the company first, the revenue first. If your people are doing good work, the rest flows. you might need to resign, you might need to support someone as they resign. That might be best for them and then the company. And that's okay. And I think it shows a lot of maturity when companies can deal with this well. Because we did this quite well at Outfit, and we had people that came back because they had to resign for themselves personally because they wanted to grow in a different area, or the role was just, they couldn't, you know, they just couldn't function well in the role. But the people that we supported out came back. And one thing I always made a very big point of is when someone left, I never joked about them, you know, you going to the competitor or whatever. I was always genuine in saying, we appreciated the work that you did and you're always welcome back. And rest sprints, this one's cool. It's kind of like cool down in Shape Up. I'm sure if you heard, you know, Greg talk about that at ProductTank a while ago, you're kind of familiar with Shape Up. But cool down is cool because it's a chance to do the documentation, the tests, improve your infrastructure, all those cards that are like in your Jira board and they're like almost in double or single digits that you never get to, right? That's what you do in your rest sprint. And sometimes it's weird, developers and product people light up when they get to touch that work. And you're like, God, you're a nerd, but I'm so glad I gave you the time to do that. You know, it gives the team time to recharge. You can't sprint forever. It's literally called a sprint. Parting thoughts, toilet paper, I got it in there. Overworking and eventually burning out is like bulk buying toilet paper in the pandemic. If even a few of us do it, then it starts a cycle and we all keep doing it. We need to break the cycle. We can't use overwork as a growth strategy. Know your success metric, we talked about that, your North Star. Align the team around it, know how your decisions are made. Give them the ability to say no again, protect their time, and communicate openly. Thanks. That's not me. I wish it was. Yeah,
That was going to be my question, Ash.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a caption. I'm on LinkedIn.
Adam. So Ash, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If I think of the way you described authentic and a person that I think of as authentic, it's you. So
Thank you.
yeah, you definitely think, do, and say. And that was demonstrated tonight so well. So I'd like to start something that I think, you know, you were saying during your presentation about your team sort of supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a moment in time that someone said something to you that made you realise that you were burnt out?
I don't think it was what they said. I think it was the look on their face, like that look of horror, like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable and I don't know how to handle you. And I think that look of this situation is out of control was sort of the moment where I went, maybe there's something wrong.
Yeah. And do you have any tips or hints for us if we see someone in that situation, if we end up in that room with you, what would have been the right response, or what is it that we can do to help people recognise that they need support and they need to recognise where they're at that point in time?
I have a feeling that the people that started Are You OK Day probably did a fair bit of research on that phrase.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that one's a pretty easy one to get out. And so I think are you alright? Are you okay? And insisting on that, because there is the knee jerk. You know, some days I see Charlotte, I'm like, you okay? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, are you sure? And then she'll kind of, oh yeah, just this, and you know, we'll have a bit of a chat. And then she's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So sometimes you have to insist a little bit because everyone has that immediate, like, yeah, I'm good, just, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think just saying to someone, you're all right, do you want to grab a coffee? You know, is there anything you want to chat about? Like, it doesn't have to be like, I think you're in stage 4 of burnout. Like, you know, it doesn't need to be that. It can just be a simple, are you alright?
Yeah,
Yeah.
humanising the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's probably the next question is, with, you know, those conversations that you go, oh yeah, I'm alright, we kind of feel like we have to respond that way, and we also are told to look after our well-being, and, you know, are you okay day comes up. Do you think there's like a level of guilt that people experience because they know that they should be looking after their well-being and not in this position, and that's a really vicious cycle to be in, and the guilt kind of comes up? Any comments around that? Is it something you experienced?
Yeah, well, I think it's similar to its predecessor, right? People just think that there's certain times that you have the conversation, there's certain times you open up, you fit in the are you okay day, like LinkedIn post, oh, I'm not okay, but then I'm, you know, and it's like, no one runs to a schedule like that, and I think that's why it's important that you kind of work on that psychological safety, and you kind of get people to be a little bit uncomfortable, because then you can break through to that moment where you can start a meeting and someone might just talk about what they need to talk about, and like, what a novel concept that we would sit in a meeting and someone would raise something that they're really struggling with. That's what those meetings should be about, and I think maybe that, you know, that question kind of leads into like, was there a, you know, another moment, right, where it wasn't necessarily on the burnout, but I knew that I couldn't have the conversation that I needed to have, you know, and so I think working really hard on that is really important, and just, you can signal it in so many ways. Like I had, we did a product presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I was sort of taking the team through a few bits and pieces, and I just kind of put in similar to what I did tonight, where I had like, these are my opinions, blah blah blah, just the acknowledgement of like what's actually going on in the room. And in that meeting I was like, look, I'm not trying to teach you how to suck eggs. My intention is that I hopefully impart something on you, and if you've got any questions, ask them. If you don't want to ask them in the room, you can come up to me. Giving people options, right? Just creating an environment where someone can find a way to be supported. I understand that sitting in front of a room like this isn't everyone's jam. And so understanding that about your team as well, and knowing how to support them is important.
Yeah. Well, we've got one more question before I'll open it up to everybody else.
Everyone's probably horrified at home. It's just like, thanks Ash, bye.
No, they love it. So, you know, we're in post-pandemic world.
Yeah.
Though we haven't been experiencing it as much as our poor Melbourne and Sydney cousins down south. Do you think burnout is increasing in this over-connected world? I just know this evening I've been getting WhatsApps and Teams messages from my team, and I'm like, oh God, it never stops.
You say no and no again. It's like, no.
But it's all chit-chat basically. But, you know, do you think burnout in the situation that we're in has always, it's got a name now, and it's kind of come to the forefront? It's always just been there?
Yeah. My mother used to say there's no such thing as stress, and like, in some ways it's like, it's weird because you're like, oh yeah, I guess, like, if you don't really believe in stress, then I guess you don't really feel it. No, it's there. Putting a label on it and having conversations around it is better, right? Because when you don't articulate, you don't verbalize, and you don't externalize, then you can't explore those things. It gets stuck in your head, and more often than not, you know, more of the same is just kind of going to perpetuate that perspective, right? Yeah. So I think it's been there. I think we have better ways to articulate how we're feeling. We have better ways of being aware of it together. I think, yes, of course, COVID has heightened a lot of what we're experiencing, and it's probably tipped some people, into those later stages. But when you think about it in a stage, you can kind of always pull yourself back. So I also liken it, I think about this stuff as well, not just with burnout or mental health, but I think we're just more highly connected, and so we're more aware of everything, right? And so, we have this conversation with my wife's mum a lot, and she's like, the crime rate is going up, and you're like, I don't think it is. I actually think it's dropped. I think there's stats that, less break-ins are happening or whatever. It's just every single thing happens. We've got this Facebook page called Morton Alert, and I swear it's just her feed, every day. And she's like, this person had their bike stolen, this and that, and you're like, well, it's not more, you're just more aware of it as well. So I think there's a little bit of, both sides, but regardless, if we're in a world where more people have language around it and we can do something about it, then that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the floor or even online?
Well, thanks, Mom.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
I have stickers for people who ask questions. And
All hands up then.
Maybe a water bottle.
Merch.
Thank you so much for actually opening up being knowledgeable about this. I think, as Patrice said, the authenticity of the show is just so amazing. So thank you.
Sorry about the heat.
I'm sorry about that fly that was
Hanging around here. How well did I hold my shit together though?
I was like, she didn't say anything about that. And then I was like, if it came to me, I was going to snap it.
So I'm just going to go out on a limb and guess that you've been exposed to the concept that burnout actually being held by some people as a badge of honour.
100%.
How have you in your experience come up with any good ways as a outside party to diffuse that kind of a situation? It can feel very, very hard and very real to go, well, how do you defend yourself against that when it's actually seen as positive by someone?
Yeah. That's a fucking brilliant question. I think it's the way in which you respond, and it's kind of like anything, right, that's a little bit on the nose. You don't want to give it oxygen, and you kind of want to be really genuine and authentic, and I've never actually been directly faced with someone who's like, oh yeah, I was burnt out, and whatever. But I think how I would respond is, well, what did you do about that? How did you handle that? Because they've got two options. They can kind of continue to brag about it, or they can admit that they did nothing and it was a failing on their part. And so maybe you've got the ability then to force them in that moment to open up. And maybe no one's ever done that because the response is, oh yeah, you're so brave, that type of thing, where it shouldn't be that. It should be, well, what did you do about it? You're an adult. How did you get yourself out of burnout?
That's really good answer.
You're welcome. You'll get it.
Oh, it's upgraded.
Number one, thank you very much for your talk. Thank you for sharing your personal experience. You got to about the third slide, and my number one first thought was, if we were one-on-one, I really wanted to say, are you okay?
Aww. Thank you.
Don't answer that.
I'm sure
you're on a journey. You don't have to expose that to anyone else. But it's sort of, it was just where I was at.
Yeah.
Thank you for teasing out the topic.
Yeah.
It's very important that we see more of this. And I guess there's a little bit of extra context that you can touch on. And it's like, our context is we're in the middle of businesses, often they're startups, and you talked about that too, but we're trying to create something new in a world that mostly our context of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia does not know about. We are trying to build businesses that do not exist here. We don't have examples. And again, I'm coming from a slightly different direction. But personally, I think our state and federal governments have no understanding and appreciation for. And this is actually the thing of the future, not what they see as enterprise businesses today. So affirmation for everyone here in product, that's what we're doing, and they have no effing idea what we're building, but we have a picture of the future that we're sort of building. So, but part of that is, and it's been exacerbated with COVID so much, is we've got to, if we're going to build a team and we are exposing ourselves to that and our team members to that. And if we are going to do this, I think that someone touched on integrity before, very important. If we're going to do it with integrity, it might all fall apart, but if we've done it with integrity, others will come back to us later, they will look to us, they will look to our example, and they'll use that sort of later on. Sorry, I've talked almost sort of...
No, that was brilliant.
I'll share one other thing, but it's really struck me before COVID. A SaaS customer of mine who's in Alaska and on a mine site. And I got an email from one of the guys there, and they've got a sticker on their email that says they're qualified in first aid for mental health. Before COVID, and it's like, I'm going, wow, I've never seen that before. And I'd encourage everyone, I won't give you all the background on this, but a colleague that I'd worked at within my very first job, and I'd gone to a startup in my second, and he followed me into that. And after a few beers, I'm chatting with him in a very noisy place, and I said, Ward, this is not a safe environment like we were used to. Go to the edge of the cliff, put your toes over the edge, but don't jump off. Walk back, walk away from the whole damn thing. And it was my way of trying to say, look after yourself first of all. And I thank you for your example, what you've talked about, what you've teased out, because you're giving us an example of that journey. You're giving us a deep understanding of some of the personal stuff in the middle of it. And I thank you for the example. I thank you for what you've shared, and also for the fact that you're here talking to us.
Thank you. Round of applause. With that, I think the interesting thing about putting this together was kind of the sprint concept, and I guess pushing everyone when you're trying to hit targets, and that's the mentality that's kind of, you know, being bred in the environment. That was a hard thing to kind of talk about, because in some ways I don't want people to take from this, we're just, you know, 9 to 5 and we do the thing, and we don't need to compete. And I think that's the hard thing about what we're trying to do, and it's like this in a lot of different areas of life. Like a good friend of mine she's an artist, a singer, and she's trying to stand up a sort of an independent body within the music industry to help with a lot of, you know, sexual harassment stuff, basically. And she's sort of shouldering that whole burden, right? And in those early years of when you're trying to push with activism and things like that, if you don't push yourself, no one else really will, right? And then there's kind of that small group who work hard, and I think there's a lot in that. It's probably very similar in the startup world, where we're not getting the recognition, we're not getting the support, and it's hard. But at the same time, we'll burn out and we won't be here for the 5, 6, 10 years time when these businesses, you know, or the landscape has truly changed and we've been recognised for that. And so I think when you're thinking about the trade-off, you know, do I want my team to be able to go that journey and potentially, you know, really stay in tech and love it and grow that way, and like you said, be here for it? Or do I want to give them an experience where they, you know, we potentially lose really good talent because we push them too hard? No, I want to try and, you know, extend the runway as long as I can. And I don't think it's really that, I don't think the trade-off's really that great when you really look at it. I think you can give the right balance, and the payoff is huge.
Oh, sorry. No, you go.
Yeah.
You should find it out.
If you had one or more pieces of advice to give to someone who is burnt out and who's trying to find back that passion, avoid that kind of memory loss, brain fog type of thing, whether it's in the professional world or in their personal life, what would you say?
Go and do the thing, whatever it is, that gives you the most ROI on like filling the cup back up. So to be really obvious, when I finished at Outfit and I had time off, I rode my motorbike and I took photos and I stuffed around with coffee, and I'm sure I drove my wife mad, but that's what I did and it made me happy. And I had no agenda other than getting up, do whatever I need to. I also spent time with, you know, friends that I knew had gone through it as well, so I was being quite deliberate in trying to connect back in with people. I spoke to my mentor, you know, I made sure I was deliberate about that. But just do the thing that makes you happy, and if that's like laying on the beach, sketching, do that. You know what it is. It's just, you're not given permission to do that enough, so you think it's like this guilty pleasure. But that's going to fill your cup up enough for you to then, you know, get back into the mode of, all right, this is the way that I want to tackle this now. And don't assume that you know how long that process is going to take. It might be a couple of days, and you might be like, oh fuck, I'm good, let's go. It might be months. You know, you kind of have to put yourself first in that moment, and take the mental health side, the actual mental health side, seriously. And there's a lot of ways you can get that support without having to fork out a lot of money for, you know, a counsellor or anything like that. Like there are ways that you can kind of get that support. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. It's okay.
Have you had one of your managers burn out, and how have you handled that?
Yeah, I have, and I don't think that I was mature enough to have the conversation. I just don't think I was equipped to help them through it. And I think that's probably pretty common, right? Without perpetuating sort of norms, like more often than not, your manager is a little bit more senior, a little bit older, right? And so I think there can be an experience imbalance or difference, but also age can play into that as well. It's quite hard to give someone that's a little bit more experienced or senior to you advice. You kind of feel a little bit pompous and, you know, like, what do you know?
And is
so,
it going to be taken the right way?
Yeah, and is it going to be taken the right way? But yeah, definitely I've had managers that have burnt out, and I don't think that I quite had the tools to support them through it at the time.
Wow, they're all coming down.
Yeah, see, because I said the thing about the stickers.
Yeah, we'll go with you.
I think the question that I have come into mind is like, when you're spinning so many plates, which one do you put down? I've got uni, work, part of being partner, part of being daughter. Like, how do you figure out what plate to slow down or put down for a second?
Well, I think you're right, Carly. Like the first thing is, well, can I slow it down? Can I just pull back a little bit? What do I? And not to say that you need to just do the bare minimum in life.
Sorry,
But if you can pull back a little bit, and then I think like just from a really practical sense, like I've really been thinking lately about the concept of ROI, right, on an activity. And I don't know your mum, but your mum might. Hey, Carly's mum. But that might be the thing that you're not meant to put that one down, because right now she's supporting you in so many different ways, right? So maybe it's uni, and that's a hard decision. And I think that's kind of where people teeter on the edge of burnout, is because they just don't have the conviction to put the thing down. So ROI, what's giving you the least ROI? Put that down or slow it down. Yeah.
So, I put my nerdy glasses on. We talk more in the product. So many of our community are either in scale-ups or they're in startups.
Yes.
And they're coming to product potentially from limited outside experience and might be crossing over into product. You obviously put some great product theory into place to try and control the chaos.
Yeah.
So you're now kind of, you're able to say that you've built a product team and you've built a product.
Yep.
But if I'm the first guy,
yep,
I'm the only product guy.
Yep.
I've got feature requests coming at me. I've got sales guys promising me the deals flow from the next feature that what processes on the product theory side did you put in and get ROI from? Because we can't hide from these people.
I think that's why I harped on about the vision and the direction. And I have this slide that I can't remember the dude that it's in an article on like First Round, and I'd send it to everyone anytime I talk about like Product 101. And it's the stages of a startup, and the first one is like the drunken walk, and then it's like product fit, and then it's scale, and then there's like two others that are whatever. But I think it's hard because a lot can be justified in the drunken walk stage, right? Anything can be justified. Anything that's remotely related to like whatever you're in will get through. But I think still understanding what the vision is will serve you in that first phase, and then understanding what that, the North Star's a bit of a corny one, but you get the concept quickly, right? There's a thing that everyone's running to, and so the sooner you can get an understanding of that thing, the sooner you can start fending people off with it and saying, look, there's just no way, sales guy, that I can stretch my bow from here to the North Star. It's just not going to fit. And so the sooner you kind of start to draw conclusions to that North Star and say, look, I get that's a great idea, but how does it serve the vision? The sooner you'll kind of be able to have those conversations. And then if you're not getting that, you need to push on the person that's meant to deliver that. In most cases, it's the founder or the co-founders, and so holding them accountable, because surely they want you to be running towards that. That's the thing that they started that's what caused the inception in the first place, right? So that's the thing.
I usually don't ask questions because I'm like, okay, schedule, everyone wants to, whatever. But thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. I'll say that again. I'm looking forward to having people access this and consider it for themselves at later times. Because of that vulnerability, I don't want to zoom in on a part of your talk, but I did hear you say while you were talking about Outfit, our customers are. And that part of your talk struck me because product is so much about ownership. Mm-hmm. You're taking ownership of the product, you're advocating for customers. So there's hanging on to this ownership at the same time, potentially there's this letting go as well.
Yeah.
Of letting go to maintain sanity. how do you do that while you're doing product? I know you rode your bike or something also, it's a process after outfit, but how do you still sort through and let go and stuff today?
I think if you can't let go, like if you can't go on Christmas holidays, right, and truly just be with your family, there's something wrong. And so I can't give you an answer to there's something wrong because it shouldn't be there in the first place, right? There's a level of obsession that's okay. If you really love the product and you love your job, great. But you pick it up and put it down when you want. If it's something that you're carrying all the time because something's wrong, then you really have to address that problem. And you're not going to be able to put it down until you identify what it is. Like for me, it was this. It was I just truly felt completely responsible for all the product decisions and what we were building, regardless of whether I had a say or not. And that was just a deep kind of thing that I had to work through. And I still, outfit's still very much a part of who I am today, and I still talk with a lot of the team, and that's still really important. But I think the difference is now I can put it down more often, and I choose when I pick that back up. So I think if you can't put things down, I can't identify why you can't put them down, but you've got to work out how to put them down. There's something there that's wrong. Yeah.
You obviously said that you would encourage someone who is burnt out to take a break or do a bit long.
This is Charlotte. She works at Askable. She does an amazing job. She's our participant marketing specialist. Just saying, she graduated. You're amazing. Sorry, keep going.
Okay. Well, so you wanted people to take a break if they are indeed burnt out, but you, as being someone who has depression and anxiety, know how it feels like taking pills and have it hit you and you're like, this is great, and I know how it feels.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I need this every single day.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be off it, and there's overdose.
Yeah.
So in a situation where the burnout is the pill, how would you handle that situation as the person who is having burnout and also as the leader or the employer?
So if I understand correctly, are you saying that the burnout is the thing that is kind of keeping you going?
Yeah, so I would say like the person who is burnt out would take a break and then get addicted to it and say, I actually want more of this.
To the break?
To the break, and then still wanting to keep the job, and then, but of course the employer at the other side is saying, we need you more.
Got it.
And how does the employee not go to find, say, come to work, or
yes,
you do more and you give more?
Yes, and I'm sure this happens all the time, and that's sort of the idea that it's a band-aid, right? Like I did first aid training, and I just wanted to do it in case I came across someone that came off their bike on the side of the road, and I was like, I'm helpful. But with that, they teach you, how to kind of assess the situation, stabilise the person, and then get the real help. And I think that's kind of what is going on when you take a break. And that was sort of the point that I was making with if you're at home and you're not actually doing anything with it, then you're not doing anything with it. You're not getting to the core of it. It's just a band-aid. And so that's important sometimes to stabilise the situation, to stabilise yourself, to just make sure you can kind of get into a mindset where you want to start to recover. But if that's all that's being sort of thrown in, then it's a cycle, right? You're not breaking the cycle. You're just kind of feeding something temporarily to get you through until you're burning out again. And it's not just addressing your own mental health, it's then also reflecting back on the situation that you're kind of going back into. And sometimes you can't change the employer, right? You can't change the person on the other side of the table. My mum had this saying of, and it's like, it's serenity prayer, right? You know, accept things that you can't change the things you can. I butchered that, but it's basically right. But it is that, right? Like, do what you can and change the things that you can, and if you can't, then you have to kind of have the wisdom to understand the difference. And so if you can't change the employer, as tough as it is, you're probably going to have to get out because it's just not going to bring the best out of you.
Having you job now.
No, you want to leave? I thought it was like, speaking of getting out, I'm leaving.
No, in terms of looking for a new job, how did you approach that, coming from a place of burnout and trying to, I guess, because when you burn out, sometimes you make a panic move and be like, oh, I just need anything, I need to get out of here now. Yeah. How did you make sure that you weren't going to be put in the same position again?
Great question. I was really fearful in the beginning, like when I resigned, that I wasn't going to have opportunities. Like, I really worried about that. It was weird. And it's because you're kind of in that low state, right, where you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in your abilities, you're like, what can I offer the world? And it took me time after I kind of, so it wasn't when I finished, it was when I handed the resignation in, because then I knew, okay, I'm going, this is done, like, it's happening. That's then when I started to work out, how can I get myself back into a mindset where I really believe in myself, what I can do, what am I good at, how do I convey that? So I think it's important that you kind of separate yourself from what's happened if you're truly leaving for the right reasons. So at the International Women's Day event at the Emporium, right, one of the women on the panel, I think she was the CTO at one of the places, she said, just remember when you go from one job to another, you take yourself with you. And I was like, oh, it's so real, it's so good. It's too real, right? Because if you're leaving for the wrong reasons, then the reasons are going with you. So I think it's understanding why you're leaving, how you're going to act on that. If you need the clean break, like even like with relationships, right? You're like, oh, I'm so toxic in this, but I need something new to break the cycle. Being mindful of where you need to improve, taking that time, and then this is like really practical financial advice, but having a buffer, having that money that means you don't have to work if you don't want to is really important. If that's not an option, then, and you're not in a position where you can necessarily make that decision, maybe there's something like temp work, or maybe it's not doing the exact job that you want to do. Maybe you just kind of need to take a step left or right to kind of get yourself back into the position where you can run it, the thing you want to do again. Hopefully that answers it, and like I think it's just about going at your own pace, going at the pace that's right for you, so that you're not making, panicked decisions. And I think that's the moment that you've really got to be real about yourself. And so for me, I had a conversation with Askable, and I asked them all the tough questions that I hadn't asked or I hadn't addressed at Outfit, right? So there were really key things that I knew mattered to me. And so I hit on those in the interview and kind of truly treated the interview the way that it's meant to be, where it's a two-way street. So what do the hours look like? What's work from home like? Oh, we can take coffee home, sweet. That type of thing. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Oh. Sorry, can I have to? Look, it's not so much a question, but something I'd really like to share with everyone. I heard this years ago, and it's framed in a way that I think is even more appropriate now. All the countries in the world that were involved in the creation and agreement of rules around flying and aeroplanes. Every single aeroplane I've ever been on, the very first thing the safety message says is if the oxygen mask drop down, put your own mask on first and then help the people that are with you. And it's just sort of like the number one thing that we all need to remember as we move into these environments where we're stretching ourselves and everyone else around us is our primary thing is to look after ourselves first of all. And then the second thing, a little caution, you shared very openly around your own personal experience. And it's just sort of like, I don't want people to be totally afraid of this, but you must carry a personal awareness. There are some people that are not trustworthy and you should not trust. There is no way of picking it out, but you've got to work that out for yourself. And in this world, you will find some people that are very worthy of your trust, that you can share with, and they can become your coach, your mentor, and you can have these conversations, and they'll help you to work out life, and they'll support you when you get the bad things. But there are some people that you actually need to recognise they're not the person for me. I'm not saying that they're permanently bad. Maybe they're going through stuff, maybe they're learning, but it's sort of like, it's like putting the oxygen mask on for ourselves. We've got to make that decision ourselves. And it's like sharing what you've done tonight helps us have the example to be able to, when we're in a position later on, that we go, now I'm recognising a little bit of this, hashtag this, I think I need to do this now.
Yeah, I did almost sort of put a bit of an example in the deck about scenarios where I've heard employers, kind of not claim mental health days and things like that. But you have to use your discretion, and you'll know if the environment's right or not. I think this is all this is a safe environment, and I think you definitely need to use your best judgment as well. And failing that, there's professionals that you will have, they'll keep you confidence and all the rest of it, and you can go through that.
Cool. That's probably a good next slide. I'll just go down on this, Ash.
Yeah, you can go either way. It's great.
So, Beyond Blue and Lifeline, if anyone does need support, are there. You can call them at any time. So, just note that. We've got a ProductTank membership program. Have a look at it. You can sign up and it gives you different levels. So, have a look at that. And then you can join us on Slack. And continue the conversation there. And the last slide is just a huge thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're free.